Mr. Chris D'Souza.
I'd like to thank the Minister and the two SMSs for their very thoughtful clarifications. I'd like to ask the Minister in particular whether he sees opportunities arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic for digitalization in Singapore such that we can garner a reputation for being the Silicon Valley of Asia. Whether we can bring the best digital minds and the best digitech minds to Singapore and have economies of scale here such that we can replicate or even advance a reputation of being Silicon Valley of Asia. That's my clarification number one. Thank you.
Chairman, I thank the member for his clarification. I think when he uses the term Silicon Valley of Asia, it's really a kind of a shorthand to describe what is essentially a confluence of opportunity, enabling environment, and talent. And I think in that regard, even before COVID-19, we already had a certain momentum to bring that confluence about in order to create a thriving opportunity within the tech ecosystem in Singapore and through Singapore into Asia. And to answer the member's specific question, I think COVID-19 has, if anything, given this further impetus. How so? First, obviously, in catalyzing digital innovation in order to deal with the challenges that COVID has thrown up, but in the process also triggering a larger scale of adoption of digital technologies and, in a sense, a desire for more digital solutions because the value proposition has been internalized and now there's a desire to adopt and scale. The second thing is we have also seen the flow into Singapore of more technology-related investments. In fact, the member himself mentioned this in his speech, and several others have alluded to this. And again, I think that is in recognition of both the business environment, business conducive environment that we have in Singapore, the talent base that we have in Singapore, and the opportunity set that they see in our region and how Singapore can be the locale from which those opportunities can be accessed. So we have seen significant investments and new projects initiated by the big tech players, global tech players, but we've also seen many of the mid-size and even our local enterprises moving in that direction. The third point I would make is, because it's about confluence with talent, and this is where we have been making significant efforts, as I explained, my colleagues also elaborated, both in terms of developing our local base, which is important, investing not just in the pipeline that is upstream from our universities and pre-employment training and education, but also in endowing our workforce, those especially in their mid-careers, with the requisite skills to make that pivot into tech. But at the same time, we are also engaged to attract talent that can complement our local base judiciously. Because of that scarcity of talent, tech talent, across the spectrum, whether you're talking about AI, cybersecurity, data analytics, etc., I think we need our fair share of talent, and that is something we are purposefully going about in partnership with other economic agencies, and that includes those under MTI. And it is about attracting Singaporeans who are based overseas, who would want to come back perhaps, and we've seen many like that, but also other talent from other nationalities who can judiciously complement our capabilities. So in sum, Mr. Chairman, to answer the member's question, there is certainly an opportunity for us to build on this. Whether I would use the moniker Silicon Valley of Asia, well, I would apply that with some restraint, but I think certainly we have the opportunity to be a thriving, secure, vibrant digital hub in this part of the world and part of the global ecosystem.
So Donvi.
Chairman, I'm heartened to understand from SMSN that the new Choa Chu Kang Library will have very good offering. So when the library is undergoing renovation now, there's a book dispenser which is placed at Lot 1, Level 1 currently. So I wonder if NLB can consider shifting the book dispenser to the nearest rental block, which houses about 500 units of young families once the renovation is over. And since the rental block is only about 2 kilometers away from Lot 1. Thank you.
I thank the member for his support for the book dispenser. It was placed indeed to help meet the gap while our renovations are ongoing, and we will take his suggestion back, study it, and get back to him.
Sharul Taha.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Minister and the two MOSs for all your clarifications. Just a minor question for me. I'd like to ask the Minister, you mentioned that the Digital Leaders Program will be for 80 companies. Sounds like a very good program as we need to grow our digital leaders. So how will these companies be selected? Will it be by industry or the value proposition that they're looking for? Thank you.
Chairman, I thank the member for his question. Basically, we are starting on this because we believe that there is a value proposition here. And so IMDA, working with other economic agencies, in particular Enterprise Singapore, will be focused on working with companies that have already embarked on their digital journey, somewhat progressed in the way they have evolved their systems, and they also have the kernel, the core of a digital talent team, so that this can be the foundation upon which we build this. Because if I go back to the point I made at the start, this is about not just broad-based scale in terms of the digitalization reach. It is also about peaks. In other words, we are now trying to empower companies that are ready and able to move forward, adopting more advanced digital technologies with the capabilities and critically the talent that will enable them to maximize. So this will be something where the agencies will be working with the companies that they deal with in order to identify. There's no preset quota for particular sectors. I think it is more a function of the readiness and willingness of these companies to adopt the technology and to really be able to leverage it for the next bound of their digital growth.
Is Nadia Samdin?
Thank you, Chairman, and I'd really like to thank the SMS for addressing my point earlier on. I was very keen and heartened to know that there have been discussions on how we can protect our women and girls online, and I think this is particularly poignant as this is the year of celebrating Singapore women. I know it's preliminary, but could SMS please share some of the ideas raised during the discussion and the type of partners who are involved? I've heard parents share how they feel really ill-equipped to deal with, for example, TikTok, Snapchat, and OnlyFans, But as we all know, that banning, deleting, or banning and deleting these apps won't solve the solution, won't solve the issue. So I hope that any efforts moving forward will involve equipping parents as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nadia Samdin, for your strong interest in this subject. The conversations are still ongoing, but I can share on a few clusters of issues that have already emerged from our discussions. The first cluster of issues would concern websites or online businesses that, on the one hand, may be outright illegal in terms of proffering sexual services, or they could be part of a gray area in which perhaps behavior could be encouraged, which then may move down a slippery slope towards criminal activities. And I think this is especially of concern if youngsters, including young girls, are targeted. So for this cluster of issues, there is the aspect of looking at whether or not our existing laws are applicable and to ensure that reporting mechanisms are timely and effective. The second cluster of issues that have emerged concern the sharing to many and without consent of images and footage of victims. Very often these are of women and girls, but we don't rule out men being the victims as well. And this would fall under, I think very broadly, the ambit of harassment. And this is something which ongoing discussions, not just within the MCI family, but also within the MH family, about online harms and how to strengthen them and how to also work with platforms to mitigate these harms would be very pertinent. The third cluster of issues concern one-on-one interactions. So for instance, users of social media platforms receiving unsolicited lewd pictures or very suggestive questions, and very often not quite knowing how to react to these unwanted advances. And for many of the social media platforms, community standards do exist, but I think it's a question of whether users are fully aware of what these standards are and what they must do in order to protect themselves. So for instance, we hear that a very common reaction of people who receive such unwanted advances is to delete them, but once it's deleted, the proof is gone, and that is something that I think quite a lot of public education and support would be helpful to protect the next woman or girl, or indeed man or boy, from becoming the next victim. Thank you.
Ms. Mariam Jaffa.
Thank you, Minister and SMSs, for the clarifications. I particularly want to express my deep appreciation that I think it's very evident that the approach that has been taken is a very inclusive one, with the focus on SMEs, hawkers, the elderly, and also vulnerable women. I'm very, very glad to hear of the move to different kinds of schemes, so including more customization and deeper hand-holding for digital starters, for example, with the CTO as a service, as well as for our Digital Leaders program. Ideally, I hope that these will also be somewhat sector-specific and also address, as I said in my cut, the internal process changes and the change management that would need to go along with any advice on adoption of digital solutions. At the same time, I do want to raise a little concern, having heard caution, I guess, not concern, having heard some feedback on earlier programs, which is that SMEs themselves tend to underestimate the degree of handholding needed and how hard it is actually to make a digital transformation. And perhaps at this point I should probably state that, just declare my interest as a consultant in this space. Mass customization is notoriously difficult, even with technology. And so I hope that these schemes will truly really be adequately resourced, which does involve cost, and evaluated frequently on their effectiveness and what needs to be done differently. Because I really do think that this is important for SMEs to get on board. And so if it comes to a matter of looking at ways, for example, to fund the journey, let us not skimp on the costs, but actually, think forward and proactively about how we can enable the highest number of SMEs really well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think the member has made an important point, which is really that when we embark on an effort like this, which is in essence a kind of customization at a mass scale, or mass customization as she puts it, the challenges are considerable, and we should not underestimate the effort that is required. We're talking about a very large base of enterprises. When we talk about SMEs in Singapore, we're talking about north of 200,000 entities, and they vary significantly in size and scale and complexity from the MSMEs all the way to the mid-sized players, if not those that are slightly larger than that. So our objective is really, on the one hand, to have that baseline support so that SMEs can start the journey. So hence my point in what I said earlier, that we are committed to supporting businesses at every stage, from startup to scale up and those even further beyond. And that is also evidence in the way we have structured our program. So if you look at it, SMEs Goes Digital has got a suite of possibilities, offerings, from payment solutions to going online for marketing and so on. And all of these really are for enterprises that are already at a certain scale and wanting to make this adaptation. But we've also got the Start Digital program, which is really about those who are wanting to, who are starting up their business, but they can already adopt some of the digital solutions. And then we have at the other extreme, the programs to help, the scaling up programs where they can go international by using some of this. So, and the newer initiatives that we've embarked on are really trying to build on that suite of capabilities that we have to allow a greater level of customization, but without overstating the case, because the challenge remains. So, for example, CTO as a service really can go a lot deeper, because you now have access as an SME to people with the expertise to do the diagnostics, to assess the, like the member herself and beyond, and her team and so on, who can do the diagnostics, assess the need, and more than that, to work out a strategy and a plan. And as I emphasize, it's also to work with the SMEs on the execution of that plan. So project implementation, that's key, because it's not just about buying a set of tools and then putting them into the system. As we all know, it's about the integration and then the how you adopt or adapt your work processes to that new set of tools. I think that's key to realize the full benefits. So that's our intention around the CTO as a service idea. At the same time, we've got something like the Digital Leaders Program, which is even more customized, working at a higher level, hence the numbers are smaller. I think the point that was raised, because we need to train our sites on those that can do this, that are ready for it, because they've already journeyed somewhat. So in summary, I would say it's different strokes for different folks. And we have to find that spectrum of capabilities, both in the toolkit that we have in government, but also, I think, as the member put it, ultimately the customer must also understand what it entails. It's not just about making a decision, let's go digital. It's also about understanding what it entails and the kind of commitment that's required in terms of the technology you bring into your organization, but most importantly, how you invest in your people and your systems to take full advantage of it on a sustainable basis.
Chris D'Souza. Can I also remind members to keep the clarifications short?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My short clarification is in relation to the digitalization of libraries. My request is that we don't overdo this, because there is something about flipping through a book, a hard copy book, bringing your family and your children and introducing them to the library, where you go and pick a book according to the author and return the book according to the author, keeping quiet. It's a communal space. And reading a book that has been read before and the pages have been touched before, I think there's something very intimate and special. And that's something unique to the reader and unique to hard copy books. So in as much as we try to digitalize the reading of books, can we do this in a very calibrated fashion so that we pass on to the next generation the love for holding a hard copy book and taking in a story physically, as it were?
As long as you disinfect the book.
As long as we disinfect the books, yes. And I should disinfect my rostrum too. So that's my short clarification.
I'm sure there's a short answer. Minister.
I thought I should respond to this clarification with the indulgence of my colleague SMS Ann, because I think many of us share the members' appreciation of the tactile experience of reading a physical book, and also of gathering physically in a library and so on. And I think it is not an experience that we want to eliminate by any means. We want to preserve it. And actually, what we want to do is enhance it by creating what we describe as an omni-channel strategy, so that the digital platform and the digital initiatives will reinforce the attractiveness and the value of what you have physically in the library, and in turn, what you experience in the library can then be carried on virtually through digital platforms. So really what we envisage is a virtuous cycle between the physical and the virtual, and we want to ensure that we are able to keep the finest traditions of our libraries very much alive and thriving even as we go down the path of digitalization.
Ms. Tin, would you like to withdraw the amendment?
It's been wonderful hearing all the members. As we move as one towards that digital future, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the entire MCI family, our minister, our SMSs, everyone here for the support, and to include also the officers from the SNDGG. With that, I beg leave to withdraw my amendment.
Is the honourable member given leave to withdraw the amendment? I think leave of the majority is given. The amendment is withdrawn. The question is that the sum of $1,380,214,000 for HQ stand part of the main estimates. As many as of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that the sum of $60,884,000 for HQ stand part of the development estimates. As many as of the opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.